Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
All right, that's Nelson right here on the Classic Metal Show with their biggest hit to date, Love and Affection, and I can't believe it, but after years of waiting, Matthew Nelson of Nelson is here on the Classic Metal Show. Matt, how you doing, man?
Good, Chris. How you doing?
Excellent, dude. Well, dude, the big news of the moment, I guess, is that Lightning Strikes Twice, the new Nelson record in the works. How did that come to be?
Yeah, well, it was kind of, the head of a label called Frontiers in Italy was a huge Nelson fan of our album After the Rain, which is a record that most people know us by, and just thought it would be a really kind of cool thing to make a record where that album left off, because, quite frankly, our career at Geffen Records was kind of truncated by a little band from Seattle called Nirvana that was signed to the label. So it's kind of, we kind of went away for a while as far as, the hard rock and soft metal was concerned, and this is kind of a return to those roots, if you will. We kind of tried a bunch of different stuff and kind of have been busy and touring and doing all kinds of different projects, but this is going to be a lot of fun. It's already, it's almost finished now, so it's going to be a lot of fun to tour this cycle.
Now, am I wrong, Matthew, to thinking that you have not even been doing this kind of music now for about a decade? Is that fairly correct?
I think, no, you're a little bit off. It's more like 18 years.
Oh, geez.
So it's been a while. I mean, the thing is, we've definitely been, getting out there and doing all kinds of different stuff. I mean, my year even has been crazy. I've been recording. I recorded vocals for the band Fuel. I did a bunch of background vocals on the new album by what was called Metal School, which is now Steel Panther. And I've been doing a lot of session work, which is kind of cool, and did a little bass playing with Avril Lavigne, believe it or not. I mean, I'm jumping around doing a whole bunch of stuff. I have a band called Red 37, which is a modern rock project that Keith Olsen is producing, and that's almost finished. It's a three-piece modern rock band that Keith produced, the big monster Whitesnake album that everybody bought.
Right.
With, Still the Night and all that kind of stuff on it, as well as a bunch of Foreigner stuff. So it's kind of neat. I don't know, I mellowed out for a while, and I'm kind of getting back to the heavier stuff now. It's kind of fun.
Excellent, man. Now, I'm going to jump all over the map because I have like 1,000,005 questions here. But the first one I have is, what is your connection to Elizabeth Daly, and when did she become a pop singer?
Well, E.G., as I know her, E.G. was always a pop singer. That's when I met her. I was actually flown into New Jersey by a producer and real good friend of mine, Jack Ponte, who was producing a record for her. She was signed, I think, at that time to RCA. And I played bass on her album. And while I was out there, I also played for a German artist, Doro Pesch. And E.G. and I really hit it off. I got to tell you, she's got one of the talent falls off her. She became famous as one of the voices of a million things, but Chucky from the Rugrats, for instance. She does these character voices and has made a $1 kajillion after her life as a singer. But she continues to sing and. We're good friends. So, I got to say, I go back with her about 20 years now. And great person and, so much talent. And, she's like 5'0". It's amazing.
Very cool, man. Because the one thing that I think is interesting, you say she oozes talent. Well, hell, your whole family has been oozing talent. Your father, yourself, Gunnar, your sister, all have been in the media business. When you look at that, and especially you look at your own family, is it almost in some ways, or has it been? Maybe now it's not because you've kind of settled into what you're doing and what you've done. But when you were first coming up, was it more of like a competition to, our sister's on TV, so we got to be bigger on MTV or something to that effect, or not at all?
Funny enough, not at all. I don't know why, but it almost took pressure off of it because it was the family business going back, a few generations. Our great-grandparents were vaudevillians, our grandparents, Ozzie and Harriet, but, on our mother's side of the family, too, our Uncle Mark Harmon's not doing so bad on NCIS right now.
Oh, jeez.
And, which is, it was kind of one of those things where if you can imagine a surreal existence, at the family holidays, somebody sitting across from you is a bigger star than you'll ever be. It just kept you real and let you realize that, everybody around that table was famous and or popular for doing what it was they did. I mean, our Uncle Mark, my mother's dad, won the Heisman Trophy at Michigan as a football player, and then went on to be a sportscaster. So for us, we kind of struck gold on the gene pool there, I think, but it was one of those deals where if we ever got, our heads were too big for our shoulders, they knocked us down a peg really quick.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of cool. I mean, even now, Gunnar and I stay hours after shows to meet anybody who wants to meet us, because we realize, quite frankly, where we come from in the sense that we're very lucky to just even be able to play music for a living. And, I always say this, doing something you love for a living and getting paid for it's a license to steal. So I've had other jobs. This is better.
Oh, absolutely, man. And now I'm curious, man. I know your sister Tracy was on Square Pegs, and after that, I have no idea. Is she still acting, or did she get out and just become a regular person, or what does she do now?
Well, she went from Square Pegs. She was in Down and Out in Beverly Hills with Richard Dreyfuss, the movie.
Okay.
And then she did the Father Dowling Mysteries with Tom Bosley for, I think, 7 years. She was his sidekick on that show. That was a TV show that ran for a while, and I think she told me at the last count she's done 28 Lifetime TV movies.
Oh, wow.
So you're just watching the wrong channel. She's out there working, and she took a little bit of a break because she had a kid. Tracy's a cancer survivor, and she's one of those people they told you'll never have kids, and they radiated the hell out of her. She was stage 4 cancer, and she beat it, and she had 2 kids after that. So she's kind of trying to find the balance there between having a very young little boy now and raising him on her own and having a career. I think there are a lot of people that are listening that probably know what that's like.
Sure. So, I'm sure, man.
Yep.
Well, dude, moving closer to home, I guess, your brother, and I don't know how else to put this, but I just found it to be the oddest move of all when he went on Celebrity Fit Club. He didn't need to be on Celebrity Fit Club. What did he weigh at the start, 170 pounds?
I think he was in the 180s and stuff like that. I use a fat lump of crap. I mean, come on, give it up. No, he had a morning radio show, and if you've ever done morning radio, it's basically the worst hours you could ever imagine. You're at work at 4:00 in the morning. You're off air at like noon, and the first thing you do is you go and eat a big meal and then sleep all day. And he did that for about a year, and what happened was he was a fill-in for that knucklehead Jeff Conaway. Well, I guess they had a revolution, a little revolt on the stage there. The chicks that were doing the show said they weren't going to show up if he showed up because
wow.
He was out of his mind.
Right.
And I guess our manager knew the producer, and he asked if there was anybody who would do it. And the thing was this: Gunnar wasn't really fat, but he was deliciously out of shape for Gunnar.
Okay.
And I'm only going to point this out. If you ever watched that show, and I told him this before he went on. He did all the work. I'm not going to take any credit for it. But I said, if you're going to do this thing, here's the benefit of it. Most people that have judged you or me have only judged us on the outside or what they see on an 8x10 glossy. A lot of people don't even get past the image. So this is something where you're going to show what you're made of. And if you're going to be a real idiot, they'll get to see it. And if you're going to work hard, they'll see that too. And Gunnar wound up losing more weight than any of the fatties on that show,
right.
Except for one person. He lost 33 pounds in 2 months, which is amazing.
Yeah. And
he went down from, I think it was 22% body fat to 9%.
Wow.
I mean, he ripped up. And I think that what you got there is he looked at it this way. He got paid to work out, a lot of money, paid to work out in general. I mean, give me a break. It was his full-time job. He said he was just totally blessed. And there were people on that show that not only could they not give a crap, but how do you go on a fat show and gain weight in front of America? I mean, what's wrong with you, Yeah. So I think what it is just one of those things, a real example of, where Gunnar's head is at in life and what our philosophy is, which is if you're going to do anything, be the best at it, or at least try.
Sure. Now be honest, though. Before he went on, when he told you he was going on, you cringed because he's so tightly connected to you.
No. I don't think so. I think everybody knows he's the heifer out of the two of us. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I love my brother. We're brothers. Come on, but I'm bummed. What I looked at it as this. I knew how he was unhappy because not only was he kind of unhappy with what he was doing, but it's like a lot of us. He had just gotten out of a relationship, long-term relationship that he was really excited about that wound up really hurting him. So he medicated with food, and I looked at it as a real chance to get his head straight, really. Kind of he went to boot camp for a while. As a matter of fact, I think that was one of his rewards. He got to work out with the Marines, And, we got a cousin that's a Marine, and we know what that's all about, and a lot of friends in the military. So they were all placing bets as to how long it was going to take him to puke on the ropes course and stuff, and he did well. He actually didn't throw up on himself. I'm very proud of him.
Excellent, man. Well, Matthew, obviously, man, it's no secret that probably the most famous of the Nelsons would be your father, Rick, and before his death, I mean, he was so well regarded. I mean, in many ways, he was the first ever teen idol, or the first huge teen idol, and had such a successful career in both television and he had songs and whatnot. I've always been curious, especially after the MTV thing kind of went away for you guys and you guys started doing your own thing. Have you guys ever considered, as the Brothers Nelson, doing an album of his songs, almost like the Nelsons do Nelson type of a thing?
God, that's an amazing idea. We did one about 10 years ago, and just on our indie, we sold about 30,000 copies with it. It's one of those things that we actually have a show that we do from time to time. We didn't do it up until just a couple of years ago, but we grew up with those songs and with that music, and our dad was our best friend. He was a great guy, we were supposed to be with him on the plane when it went down, and we were 18 when he passed away, so we really got to know him pretty well. And we put together a show called Ricky Nelson Remembered, and we have a great benefit of amazing amounts of video footage. I mean, the television show, our family's TV show, ran for 14 years.
Sure.
So we have some clips, and then we have an all-star lineup of guys in the band, some guys that played with him, some guys that we found along the way. And you could just see the audience, especially the people that grew up with him on the Ozzie and Harriet show and used to hang out. It was like the first MTV. They'd hang out and wait to see Ricky sing a song at the end of the episode, And it was pretty awesome to see the audience completely transform. You see these people, they turn into kids again. And I think that's what it's all about, man. I don't care what you do, if you're banging your head or you're playing oldies, the fact is do it really well and make sure that you connect with that audience.
Sure. Was watching him what gave you and Gunnar the bug to actually get into music?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have even a clip that is like a video clip of us, and I think we were little over, I think about 2 years old. We're like dancing around with plastic guitars and rubber pants, with our dad playing, and it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, I can't remember a time not wanting to do it.
Sure.
It's really kind of, you look at it that way. You grow up when there's music all over the house, your dad's singing, and, I remember the first time I ever saw him in concert in front of people, like a lot of people. I just saw this guy on the stage with all the bright lights, and it looked an awful lot like my dad, and it's like, wow. That is my dad. He's having a great time, and people are screaming for him. I got to do this. So it was, it couldn't help but kind of rub off on us a little bit.
Absolutely, man. Now, I'm sure you've heard it, and I've heard it, and everybody's heard it, but there's always that urban legend out there as far as what caused the fire in his plane crash with the whole freebasing thing and whatnot. Does that bother you that such a stupid rumor, got out there?
Well, it was kind of like this. By the time the report came out 6 months later, and the Janitrol heater was to blame, it was a World War II era plane that belonged to Jerry Lee Lewis and stuff. There was they say that an awful lot of things have to happen for something like that to happen. Basically, the heater leaked fuel under the belly of the plane and it caught fire. And did it hurt? Did it suck? What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had to watch the lead-out story for 3 weeks on the television. My dad just getting creamed in the media. And here was a guy that never said no to an autograph, had to be pulled out of people. Basically, if you think about it, you just basically donated his life to entertainment. And the first thing that people did was jump all over him to try to, I guess that's what they do. And it sells papers. They say if it bleeds, it leads. The one thing they don't remember is that, only I think if you're a celebrity do they not have the respect to wait until they notify the family. I mean, I found out my dad was dead on my car radio, and Gunnar was watching the television set. So it's a pretty horrible thing, and it just kind of like comes with the territory. I guess they figure, well, that's what they give up to be in this business, but it's an awful lot to give up if you think about it. And the interesting thing, I think, more than anything, was that I always saw my dad as not getting enough credit when he was alive. I remember seeing some shows, and if there was a light turnout or, he'd read some reviews that they were never musical, and he was really serious about his music. It was always a personal slag. He's a great-looking guy, and You know, it's like John Fogerty said in Rolling Stone. Sometimes when you're that good looking, you know, you don't even take yourself that seriously. I mean, it's like admitting the prom queen has a brain. And that's kind of what dogged him. I mean, Gunnar and I are pretty guys, but he was a whole different level, you know?
Right.
And it was, he just was really talented. And, you know, Gunnar and I always grew up with this kind of feeling, just what we saw with our dad, that, and it's something that we lived in our own career. You know, we're kind of guilty until proven innocent. We have to show up and throw down 10 times harder than anybody else. I mean, my buddies, guys I sang the record, I was Monday night at the Key Club, I was singing, you know, I went to a Steel Panther show, this spoof band of 80s rock, and
Sure.
they were kind of ripping me up in the audience, and people were laughing the whole thing, and then they saw me in the audience, realized I was there, and they called me up on stage, and they gave me a mic, and I sang Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And I just, you know, it's the kind of thing where, you know, you open your mouth and you kick the crap out of that audience.
Right.
And they go, wow, had no idea. But it's kind of like, that's kind of our family karma is, you know, as long as you get on stage, and it's not like, I know a lot of people that have these legendary statuses and show up on stage and are horrible.
Okay.
I'd rather have it this way, I guess. You know, and like my dad, who knows, maybe Gunnar and I will get a little more respect and credit when we're gone. But we got a lot of rocking to do until then.
Right on, man. Now, when you see, obviously, you know, the media is what it is now, and you know, most recently Michael Jackson, you know, in many ways, a very similar thing to when your father passed. You know, as far as the media, is it worse now, or what? I mean, it just seems like it's out of control now.
Well, it was. I mean, I experienced it to the point where I couldn't leave my house for 2 weeks because of the vultures at the gate. So it's always there. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
The one thing I gotta say is that's a little bit different is the whole paparazzi deal. I mean, I have had more. I live in Hollywood. I live in Los Angeles, and I have had more really cool Sundays wrecked by an idiot with a backpack and a long lens, you know, climbing over me to get a shot of some idiot starlet in Malibu. You know, it's like. It's just gotten to a point where people are making all these, you know, all this money off of people's tragedy and misfortune, and it's condoned. I mean, look at your newsstand. You know, it's gonna happen, but it just does kind of make me want to puke a little bit.
Sure.
And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, there's a lot I gotta say. I mean, Michael Jackson had a similar thing for our dad because he started really super young, like our dad did.
Right.
You know, started on television when he was 8. Michael was a child star too. And spent his whole life kind of defining who he was as a person and all that. I think that the difference is, I think Michael had a whole lot of that Elvis syndrome where when you're generating that kind of cash,
mm-hmm.
there's so many hangers-on around you that should really kind of like my friends, they would take me out, you know, behind the rehearsal room and beat the crap out of me if I started acting like he was acting,
right.
you know, and trying to get me real a little bit. I think when you're making that much money, people don't want to stop the flow of green, so they just kind of say, no, Michael, it's okay. You know, you can have a hospital room and shoot yourself up with stuff that would, you know, knock out a football team. Go ahead. It's all right. Why not? You got to sleep. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, to a certain degree, you got to feel sorry for a guy that just nobody wanted to say no to. And, I mean, it happened to Elvis. I remember when Elvis died, and I remember the year before, my dad had seen him in Vegas, and he literally wept. He left, you know, saw his friend all bloated and miserable. And he just told his band, guys, don't ever let that happen to me. And at least that didn't happen to our dad, but it can happen if you're generating that kind of money and you got a lot of yes people around you. You know, I'm giving you and all your listeners full license. If that ever happens to me and my head gets too big, just kick the crap out of me and get me real again. Okay?
All right. I hear you, man. Well, dude, obviously, man, the reason we are chatting tonight is that you are going to be over in Cincinnati playing a gig. Now, what can people expect for that? Are they going to hear new stuff, or is it going to be the classics, or what are you guys planning on playing?
It's going to be both. I think we've got a pretty good balance of the stuff that people grew up with and want to hear, as well as things that they haven't heard yet that I know they're going to get really pumped. I mean, we did a few gigs, if it's any indication of the new stuff, did a few gigs with Boston, opening for them, and it was the new stuff that got the standing ovations. You know, so that was kind of cool, and that wasn't really even our crowd. So it's a lot of fun. You know, we've got a great band. Bobby Rock, our original drummer's in the band. He's a monster.
Sure.
Local guy named Neil Zaza is playing guitar with us, and he's, you know, look him up on YouTube, and the guy's a virtuoso.
Right, sure.
We've always had, like, better players than we needed, even back in the After the Rain days. We had a band, well, we kind of had to. It was like, I'll never forget going on tour with Cinderella and Lynch Mob. We were like, one of these things is not like the other band, you know, because we were coming off of a sold-out theater tour. But, you know, obviously we're decidedly more, you know, along the Bon Jovi tip than the Metallica tip.
Right.
And I remember George Lynch, who was, you know, Dawkins' guitar player, but had his own band, and, you know, I grew up with him, and he gave us so much crap for, you know, us even being on the tour. And then he saw our guitar player play, a guy named Brett Garcett, and he followed him around like a puppy for the rest of the tour. And the guy was a monster. And that's kind of what we do, is like we just kind of shut up, and then when we show up, we want people to have that same reaction of, I had no idea. And that's what it's all about for us. We love to surprise people, and I think, you know, come to the show. I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised. We'll get you.
Absolutely, man. Now, one more side question for you. You did this project with one of our really good friends here on the show with Mr. Biggs, Eric Martin, on the scrap metal project. Now that, when you guys put that together, did you expect it to get, you know, as popular as it did? That seemed like it really came out of a grassroots idea and grew up to be a nice little project for you guys.
Well, it did. It's actually really more of Gunner's brainchild, because he pretty much lives in the 80s, you know, and I think that was kind of funny. I actually came in as a sub for a bass player they had. But, you know, the idea, I think, was a sound idea. It was take the voices of all of those bands from that era and put them in one band, so when they're singing their hits, it sounds like them singing their hits.
Right. It's
kind of like going to see a band and it's like they've got a replacement lead singer. It's cool. It just ain't the same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And this is like, if you go to a show, I mean, at any given time, it's a revolving cast of characters of lead singers. The core group probably being Gunner, myself, Mark Slaughter, and we've had Kelly Keggy from Night Ranger, Kip Winger, Eric Martin, of course, Joe Lynn Turner, Jeff Scott Soto, Jimmy Jameson from Survivor. We've had a bunch of guys. We had Janie Lane show up. That was an interesting story. We had Janet Gardner from Vixen. And the thing is like, people come and they see, you know, the top 2 or 3 hits these bands ever had with those voices, and it just takes you, it's like what can you say? It's kind of like one of those Time Life greatest hits records live. And we rip each other on stage, too. It's really funny. We're very serious about the music, but we have a lot of fun with each other. And you know Eric Martin, man, he's a crack up anyways.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And boy, it's tough to get him to talk, though, isn't it?
I don't know. I've never had to interview him. You know, when we're backstage, I'll tell you what, he's Eric Martin. What can you say?
Yeah. Well, when you're interviewing him, it's very much the same. You say hello, and then you just step back for about 40 minutes while he tells stories. He's fun.
Well, it's so funny. I think they call him, instead of Mr. Big, they call him Mr. Vocals.
That's right.
In Japan, so
yep.
So it makes sense.
Right.
Appropriate.
Hell yeah. Well, all right, man. Well, as we said, Nelson is back. The new album coming soon is Lightning Strikes Twice. Do you have a release date for that yet, or is it just kind of finishing it up now?
Not yet. We know it's in the fall, so I know that I have to deliver it by September, mid-September, and then it just however long it takes them to you know, crank up the machines. I think nowadays with the internet and stuff, it doesn't take all that long, so probably about a month after that. So we're looking for October.
Excellent, man. And then next week on, I believe, the 14th, you are going to be in Cincinnati, playing a show over at the River Star Entertainment Complex. So everybody should go out to check that one out. And for the people listening on the internet, other shows that are coming up, you guys are going to be back out again in September for a couple of shows in New Mexico and Iowa and Florida. So Nelson is back and starting to make the rounds.
So come and see the show. For those people that saw the show in the 90s, well, you know what? You'll relive some stuff. And for those people that kind of like have their arms folded going, I don't know, trust me, come to the show.
Right on, man. Well, Matthew, before I let you go, I got to ask you what's known as the traditional classic metal show question. We've asked every single interview that we've done in the last 5 years this one, and we get all kinds of answers.
Okay.
As a bass player, this might relate to you, and it might not. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
Wow. I love Rickenbacker basses because of him, but when I saw him at the Rainbow in Hollywood and he came up to me and told me that, you know, that my father was a, quote, a cracker. He said he was huge influence on him. So I guess the question would be, how has your family influenced Lemmy from Motorhead? That's the way he did.
Wow. Excellent, man. Well, all right, man. As we said, you are going to be out there, and as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track. So what should we end the interview with, and maybe tell us a quick story about it?
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to have you search for this one. Okay? If you can find on George Lynch's solo album called Sacred Groove, a song called We Don't Own This World.
Okay.
And it's Gunnar and I singing the lead vocals on this thing when Don Dawkins punked out on George in the studio one night.
All right.
And I think it's a great song. It's a Nelson song that should have happened, but if you wanted to think Nelson meets Dawkins, take a listen to it. We Don't Own This World by George Lynch.
All right, let's check it out right now. It is the Classic Metal Show.
Thanks for checking out the Best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.